All right, everyone. So now let's go ahead and see that how we can allow the user to add a particular vegetable to their garden. You can see right now we are on the vegetable details screen. And one of the things that I like to add on the vegetable details screen is some sort of a toolbar where we can, select and allow the user to add a vegetable to their garden. All right. So by adding to the garden basically means that this is a vegetable that they're basically planting in their actual physical garden. So I'm going to go ahead and use a toolbar and going to use trailing. The view should be, let's start with a view. We'll use like a view which will show a plus button. So I can go over here and use a plus sign. I'm going to use a button over here with the image. There we go. We can use the plus image, that's fine. And over here in the button, we will do something. I first need to see that if we can get the actual button there, so you can see the button is there. And when you click a button, it's not like we can just add a vegetable to their garden, because if you look at the data that we're getting, right? So indoors, so outdoors, growing description, and this is the important data right there. Days to harvest using seeds, days to harvest using seedlings. And this information is available for every single vegetable. Days to harvest, seeds, seedlings. All right, and you can confirm that if this is not correct, you can go and get the correct values, but we're going to use these values. This means that if you have seeds, which comes probably in a packet, and you are harvesting or you're planting, then it's going to take 84 days. But if you have seedling basically means the plant is already a couple of inches tall. You buy it from whichever nursery that you go to, and it's going to take 64. Obviously, these are just approximate numbers. It's not like every single plant or vegetable is going to take the same amount or exactly the same amount of time, but it's a ballpark, all right? So once we click this button, we have to give it some sort of a menu so that they can select seed or seedling. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create a variable over here, like a state variable, which I can say show seed or seedling menu. All right, and this is just going to be a Boolean value. It's going to be false. And now if I go back over here, when you click on the button, we can change this value to be show seedlings menu equals to true. Now when it becomes true, this is our opportunity to go ahead and display a sheet. So I can go over here and say it's presented, show seedlings. And now over here in the sheet, I can show some sort of a actual view which allows the user to select seed or seedling. All right, so it's completely up to you how you design this particular view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into views folder and I will create it from a template. So now we're creating a view that will allow us to select whether we are planting from a seed or a seedling. So I'm going to just say seed or seedling view. All right, you can come up with a better name, that's fine. Okay, so what do we have in this particular view? Well, we can use a closure so that whenever you select a particular plant option, so it will be plant option, we'll have to create this plant option, then we pass this plant option to whoever is calling. Now, what exactly is plant option? Now, I can go ahead and create probably the plant option right here, but if you have to move it, we can also do that. So plant option, codable, case seed, there we go, seed, case seedling. So these are the two different things. And we can create a title property in the plant option. So if we want to ever display that, we can do that. That's always a good idea to create some sort of a title property. And the seed will be associated with some sort of an icon, and there will be a different icon for seedling. So I'm just going to also add the icon property over here also. All right. Okay, so that looks good. The preview is now complaining because preview is like, hey, you gotta, send in this information, like what should we do with onSelected? And right now I don't really want to do anything, so I'm just going to ignore the preview part of it. All right. And now I can go ahead and start creating that. So let's see that how we can create it. We can start over here. Again, the UI is completely up to you. Whatever UI that you want is perfectly fine. I'm going to start with a VStack. And inside the VStack, let's go and add some other stuff like a edge stack, choose option, and all of those things. This is not really going to compile because we are still missing a couple of different things, but you'll see in a moment. All right. I'll get access to the dismiss environment value. Option view, just like the detail view we implemented in the last lecture, the option view is just there so that we can display different options. So here is our option view. All right. And there you go. That's pretty much it. This is how it kind of looks like. It looks actually pretty nice. If you can see, this is our seed or seedling view. Now we can go back to the vegetable detail screen and we can start using this seed or seedling view. So right over here inside the sheet modifier, we can say seed or seedling view. We have to pass in the onSelected in this case. Like what should we do when the item is selected? So we'll get that particular option. We don't really have to pass in dismiss, so we can just remove that part. Okay. So what should we do when that particular option is selected? Like if you're saying, oh, I want to plant this vegetable with this option, like seed option or seedling option. And this is where you will make sure that you are, displaying some sort of, you are basically saving the information. Now let's go ahead and click on that. Okay, so first thing I notice is that it's taking up the whole screen. See that? The other thing I notice is that there's not much of a padding going on. So probably I'll go ahead and add something over here, right over here in the VStack for seed or seedling view. So let's see where it ends. Let's add some padding so that it can look at least nicer. Select all of that and we'll do like this. Other things are kind of like up to you if you want to show it in a gray color or not, but I think it looks kind of nice and clean. Let's go back to our vegetable detail screen. And in the vegetable detail screen, if I click on this, okay, looks nice, but we don't really want it to be full screen. So how do we capture that? How do we make sure it's not full screen? Well, in those cases, you can use presentation detents. And the one that we want to use is the one with the fraction. So fraction means that we're only going to specify the amount where it's going to be, basically this is like, let's take like 1/4 of the screen. So fraction 0.25. And we can also use some sort of a background color using presentation background. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and click on that. Okay, nice. Okay, you can see that now it looks nice. It's only taking 1/4 of the screen or 0.25. If I click on seed or seedling, it just goes away. It doesn't really do anything because we haven't really written any code over here that will allow us to save this. All right. So now the question is, well, how do we save it, right? I mean, we have the seed, we have the seedling, whichever one that you're using. So how do we save this information to our database? So let's see how we can do that. Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to, if you're saving it in our SwiftData, then we have to make sure that we have set up the preview container. All right. Right now you can see the preview content doesn't really have anything in there. And the reason that I'm going to set a preview container is so that I can work with previews, only for the previews, Xcode previews. So let's go ahead and add a new empty file. I'll call it preview container. There we go. Let's import a couple of different things. We'll import foundation. We will import SwiftData. I'm not sure what happened with, oh, yeah, it doesn't really look like it's working correctly. Let me go ahead and, oops, not even building. No, Xcode was having some issues, but there we go, we're back. I'm going to go ahead and create a property called preview container. This will be a model container. And the whole idea is for creating this preview container is we can supply this to our Xcode previews so that, we can persist the information in memory or wherever we want to. So if I go ahead and create this container, I can use this. I mean, it's if it fails, then our previews are just not going to work. And we are going to use for configuration. Now, currently we only have vegetable, I think. So I'm just going to pass in vegetable.self. That's the type. And for the configuration, I'm going to pass in model configuration is stored in memory, true. Now, you don't really have to pass in true over here, but passing in true simply means that it's going to be stored in memory, especially when we use a preview container just for Xcode previews. All right, so that's pretty much it. Now, over here, you can, if you want, you can load the vegetables. You can do whatever you want over here. Like if you want to put something in your SQLite database through the use of SwiftData, you can actually do that over here, like some sort of a dummy values. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to leave it like this. That's fine just to get started. If we ever need something, we can do that. Let's go to the vegetable details screen. Now, in the vegetable details screen, what we need to do is we need to provide this preview container for our application. So right over here, we can actually inject the model container. So I'll say model container, preview container. Now, we have to make sure that we are importing SwiftData. It's not imported, so let's go ahead and import SwiftData. Perfect. Okay. All right, so that's pretty good. Now, keep in mind that when we are actually running our actual application, do not use preview data. Why? Because preview container, not preview data, preview container. Do not use preview container because you can see it's saying over here is stored in memory. This is only for Xcode previews. You should not be using it in your actual application. And I'll show you what you need to do, but don't use that for your actual application because it's just going to be storing information in memory. Okay, so we're on the right track. Next, when the person selects a seed or a seedling, this is an indication that they want to plant this vegetable. So I'm going to go ahead and say save vegetable, to garden, to my garden. I mean, I know it's kind of like very descriptive, and I can also pass in with this particular option. There is no function called save vegetable to my garden. So I'm going to create this function over here. Private function, there we go. And I think we are going to be passing in with plant option, which will be plant option. Okay, great. Now here's the question, because we have a vegetable, which is this, right? But when we are planting my vegetable, that will be a little bit different from the vegetable itself. How is it different, right? Well, it's different because, first of all, if you're planting anything in your garden, it should have access to the vegetable itself because that's the vegetable that you're planting. The other thing is that if you're planting something in your garden, you should be able to write notes about it. We need to capture what plant option did you use. Did you use seed? Did you use seedling? And what date did you plant it? But this vegetable information, this vegetable model is more of information purposes, right? I mean, it's not customized for every user. It's just vegetable, and this is the information related to the vegetable. So it has nothing to do with when you planted or how you planted and all those things. So in those situations, what I usually do is I go ahead and I create a brand new, like my garden vegetable. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I will import SwiftData because this will be a SwiftData model. I'll call it my garden vegetable. We'll say model. And now I will have all the different properties I need. Now I do need my garden vegetable to have access to the vegetable. So I'll just add this particular property, like vegetable property. I also want an option for plant option, which means, well, did we plant with seed or seedling? And also date planted. This is important because a lot of things we will do will be based on date planted, like date harvesting will be based on when you actually planted it. Okay, so this is kind of like a very basic kind of a model that we have created. It has vegetable access, it has plant option, date planted, and all those things. That's fine. And it is decorated with this macro call @model, which allows us to save into, save into the system, save into the database. Okay. So let's go back to our vegetable detail screen. And in our vegetable detail screen, now we can actually create that. So we can say my garden vegetable. Now keep in mind, this is the actual vegetable that you're planting in your garden. My garden vegetable. Couple of options we need to pass in. We need to pass in the vegetable that you're planting. So vegetable and the plant option, which is already passed to us. Okay, so these are the two things that we're planting. We'll say context.insert. Well, we don't have the context. So let's go ahead and get the context from the environment. So I'll just say environment, and I'll say model context, private var context, and context.insert the model, which is my garden vegetable. All right. And one of the things that you will see that, and this may change because right now if you run it, and maybe it's fixed, but in Xcode 16, version 16, if you just do insert, then it doesn't persist to all the way to the database, even if you're not using in-memory database. Now, it used to work, but something happened and with the SDK during the release, and now if you just leave it like this, it's not really going to work. So what we need to do is we need to fire context.save. Now, this may change. I mean, if you're watching this video, maybe in the future, you might say, oh, I don't have to call save anymore. It works. So that's great. Just remove the save line. But right now, at least with Xcode 16, you do have to call context.save, or else it will not persist the data into the actual database. Keeping in mind, we're currently using previews or the preview container. So it's just going to add it to, what is that called? The in-memory database. All right. Now for in-memory database, I don't think you need to do that because in-memory database will be gone anyways once you run it again and again. But that will be our basic stuff. Okay. Let's go ahead and build the application. Now, one of the things that I want to show you is how do we know that it is inserting into the database or not? And for those purposes, what we can do is go to the scheme, edit the scheme, go to the launch argument, and over here, go ahead and add an argument for, I'll just add it over here, -com.apple.coredata.sql debug space, and then 1. And you can also add it for the concurrency one also if you want it. So that's another one. All right. And what will happen is that when you add these two arguments passed on launch, is you get a little bit of a debugging feature for core data. And we know that SwiftData is kind of like a wrapper on top of core data. So we get that features in SwiftData also. So what do I actually mean? Well, if I go ahead, the only problem is that I have to run the actual application to make it happen. So let's go ahead and go to this, because one thing that we need to make sure is that if we are using our actual application, we need to also provide it with model container. All right. And in this case, I'm going to say model container. Now, currently, if you want, you can simply pass in the vegetable.self. Now, keep in mind that I am not going to save this information in memory, because this is the actual app. I'm not going to pass in the model container preview container, right? Because preview container is only going to be saving it in memory. But this is the actual app. I don't want the app to be only saving in memory. That will be horrible. The next time somebody's going to run the app and they added like 30 different vegetables to their garden, all of those vegetables will be gone. So make sure that you're using the correct model container based on the requirements. And since this code is going to be running for the actual application, make sure that you're not using the preview container over here. I guess you can use it just for testing purposes and all that stuff, but don't use it when you're deploying the app, because it's going to use in-memory database, and preview container, it's just going to wipe out everything. Okay, so I'm going to run the app. Let's see what happens. Now, we're currently not really displaying anything, so you may not be able to see anything being displayed in your garden, but at least we will have some idea of what's going on. Now, one thing that you will notice immediately is, whoa, what is this going on in the output window, right? There's a lot of stuff. Remember, we added the scheme and we added these arguments passed on launch. Well, that is allowing us to debug debug behind the scenes for core data and SwiftData. And you can see what's going on over here is that it's creating this table called Z table. So it's doing a bunch of stuff that's going on, all right? Probably I need to also add the table. Let me stop this for my garden vegetable.self. All right, there we go. So even though I think it's creating a table for vegetable, but I don't think that we're using it. But let's go ahead and run this, because we didn't really save the vegetables in our database. I mean, these vegetables are just coming from the API, and we just display them. Okay, let's go to carrot. I can go and click on that, and I can say seed. Okay, let's see what's going on over here. Okay, this is all fine. Okay, here we go. This is the line that I was looking for. See that? So in order to understand this line, you have to have some knowledge of TSQL, or structured query language. And what this line is actually saying is that insert into the my garden vegetable table and some values that are being inserted. So this line is kind of like an indication that it is storing something in the database. All right. Okay, great. So this is good that it is storing all of that, well, storing that stuff to the database. Let's go to over here. Okay, vegetable. And if we want to see what is being stored, scroll on the top. You will get this weird URL which ends with default store. So maybe we can check it out, like what exactly is being stored. Open up the terminal. And what I'm going to do is simply browse to that particular URL and write SQLite 3, which is already installed on your machine, and then I can say default.store. I can say schema. I can see all of these different schemas, meaning tables and stuff. And now I can run this. I can say select all from Z, oops, I think I copied a lot of thing over here, Z garden vegetable table. Okay, so this is what it is actually saving. 1, 1, 1, 1, and then some information over here, and then seed. Okay, I guess we can try to save another thing also. So if I go over here and I say broccoli and I save it as a seedling and I run this command again, see that? So it's actually now saving it as a seedling. Okay, so it is saving the information into into the database, and we'll have to find out. We'll have to see that. Okay, when we retrieve the information, then how is this going to look like? All of that stuff. That's going to be fun. But at least we can definitely see that it is storing it in the database. So that's a good way to start. All right. So hopefully you have enjoyed it. And once again, if you're enjoying this, please share it on LinkedIn. Please share this, on Twitter. It takes a lot of time to create these videos. And, when you share it, like it, share it on YouTube, that always helps. So thank you so much. Now, remember when I was saying, I like to cover this thing also, but remember when I was saying that we were not really storing the vegetable information into our database and we're only storing my vegetable information. So what actually happens is, since the vegetable has a reference, here it is, the reference to the vegetable, my vegetable garden has a reference to vegetable. What it does is that it stores the information, all the information of vegetable into that particular thing. So it stores it into the database. See that? If you look at the vegetable, select all from vegetable, the actual table, it has all the information. Look at that. It has all this particular information. So it is storing this information. So whenever we select a particular vegetable, it stores that information into the database. So that's how it is performing that link between, oh, this is the vegetable ID and this vegetable ID correspond to, this my vegetable ID. Because my vegetable or my garden vegetable has a reference to the vegetable, so it needs to store the vegetable to get that reference. So that is what's going on. So it's actually pretty cool, because without that, it won't be able to get that reference. So it's actually using that. All right. If you like this video and want to support my channel, then the best way would be to check out azamsharp.school. Azamsharp.school is one of the largest collection of iOS development videos. I have courses on everything that you can imagine for iOS development. This includes Skip, AI for iOS developer, full stack e-commerce app development using SwiftUI Node, Postgres, SwiftUI architecture, Supabase, Firebase, Firestore, core data, full stack iOS development using Vapor. Oh, it's just so much courses, so much to learn, right? Test-driven development, MapKit, RealityKit, machine learning, so many courses. And I also host workshops. Now these workshops are 3.5 hour long, and they are very, very hands-on. The next workshop coming up is on February 7th, but you can always look at the workshop pages and enroll for these workshops. You can enroll for these things by purchasing individual courses, or you can also become a monthly or annual member and you get access to the workshop for free. This is a pretty awesome deal. So hopefully you have enjoyed it, and thank you so much, and make sure to share the video, and I will see you as an Azam Sharp member. Thank you.